Rollo and Slappy Show, episode 139, The Anti-Libertarian Tweetstorm by Teri Kanefield with Peaceful Treason. Well, hello and welcome to the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is April 8th, 2019. I'm Rollo McFlugel, and with me is Slappy Jones 2, and we are both from McFlugel.com. Show notes page for this episode is mcflugel.com/139, where you'll be able to find links to the things we talk about, as well as ways to find our guests, which we will introduce in just a second. And also to check out libertymugs.com, where you can find awesome libertarian-themed mugs. And I'm running a little contest. I started it on Twitter today. I finally figured out who my favorite actor is. So the first person who guesses who my favorite actor is gets a nice discount off their next libertymugs.com purchase. And as of yet, no one has guessed it, despite many, many, many guesses. So,
and I don't know how they didn't guess it with all the clues you gave them.
Right. Well, maybe I might give a clue in this show. You never know. But you guys are more than welcome to guess who that is. So, Slappy, why don't you introduce our guest? And they can guess who my favorite actor is. We'll just
Sure. First off, I don't know what that intro was about. We didn't discuss that before the show.
I was trying to make our guests feel at home.
Thanks.
Fair enough. Our guests today are from the Peaceful Treason podcast. They really need no introduction, but welcome to the show, Will and Jared.
Thank you. Hey.
And today we brought them on. We've been talking to these guys for who knows how long, saying we're going to record. And for whatever reason, whether it was Dark Tom Woods or something else, we haven't had it until tonight. So it's good to finally do this.
Yeah, I was going to say we've been talking at least a year, and
it probably has been.
I think it has. It's pretty close, and we just haven't been able to work it out for whatever reason. We're not as committed as you guys are. We found right before we started recording that you guys have not missed a week of recording, and this is 139.
Yep,
that's amazing. We are not that committed to our fans, apparently.
Well, or we just don't have friends.
Yeah, we don't have friends or a life, so this is once a week. Yeah, the one thing we get excited for every week.
Yeah, it's weird because we do live in the same town, just a few miles apart, and we do get together virtually every week.
Yeah.
But then it turns into a weird thing, like, oh, are we gonna duck into this side room and like do stuff together and ignore our families and friends?
Yeah.
So we kind of have to like pick a time when nothing else is going on, and that seems to get sporadic.
It's really strange. There aren't very many podcasts out. I mean, all libertarian podcasts are two cis white males.
All of them.
But every single one. But there aren't very many where the hosts actually live right next, live in the same town and actually physically meet to record, unless they have like a studio like Dave Smith and
yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right there.
There aren't very many, so that's the one thing that sets us apart, I guess.
It's also not easy to find another ANCAP type Rothbardian libertarian, whatever you want to call us, in the same town.
In the same town, right?
Yeah, you got to step on a lot of landmines trying to find that.
Right. So then to find one who can podcast or willing to podcast with you makes another challenge. So
no, go ahead.
I was just saying it's just difficult to find people in my town.
Wow. Yeah. So thank you guys for having us on. This is really fun. We will return the favor and then have you on our podcast. And then not talk to you for another year. And then not.
we'll schedule a few things over the next year and never do it.
Yeah. Very, very on brand. So,
I have a guess on the actor.
Okay.
So can you tell me how this started? Because I didn't find out about it until today. I'm way behind on podcasts. I listened to. I didn't catch your most recent one. So is that when you talked about it?
No. I think I was at work today. I was at work today, and I just kind of realized that. Oh wait, because I when people ask, "Oh, who's your favorite actor?" I never really had a good answer for it, and finally it kind of dawned on me. No, but it comes up, especially on like you get tagged in Twitter things like name your top movies and stuff, and so I was just kind of thinking about it. It's you want to be able to say what your favorite things are. Sometimes, like my favorite food is fruitcake. My favorite, we know what my favorite thing in the world is, but
yes, everyone knows.
Yes, that's
it'll come up in the show.
Yeah, that one it would have been too easy to throw in there, but it kind of dawned on me today that I actually do, based on the movies that I tend to like a lot from this actor. I'm like, oh, I guess this makes him my favorite actor. So it's kind of a little exciting thing for me. So I just posted something on Twitter today and said, hey, I came up with who my favorite actor is after 30 years of existing in the world. And
so I hadn't heard a single hint, but
you heard them all then.
Yeah, there were no hints.
Well, you gave one away, and that changed my guess entirely, because you said movies, and the guess that I had was somebody who's done predominantly. Well, he's done actually a few good movies, but he's done predominantly good TV series.
Wow.
So that's not it. I'm gonna have to think about it again.
Okay.
I'll tell you what the guess was.
You can have multiple guesses.
Well, I know I'm wrong, but I'll go.
Okay. A lot of actors out there.
My guess was going to be Jason Bateman.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
he was great. He was great in Teen Wolf, and also in my favorite show. He's also, in my favorite show ever, Arrested Development.
Arrested Development, yeah, which I've been catching up on again.
Yeah, I need to watch that again.
Watched that in years.
So good. So yeah, I'll Will, do you have a guess?
That was a good point you made about movie versus television. I'll be honest, I've been mostly this whole time trying to think of who my favorite actor is, and I don't know.
I think that's what people...
narcissistic of you.
It could be. The first that came to mind, which almost certainly isn't my favorite, but the first actor that popped in my head was one Keanu Reeves.
He's good.
It is not him. Several people have guessed that. The best guess so far was John Wilkes Booth.
So how have you gotten so many guesses if you don't have any friends? I don't understand how that works. Just random men on the street?
They're all accounts of Rollo.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, the world may never know.
Yeah, well, I like this game.
Like how many licks to get into the center of a Tootsie Pop? I don't think that was ever scientifically proven. We just don't know still.
Yeah, well, it's very on brand for me to do something like this and then have something really obscure. Like I get name 5 movies that you really like, and it's inevitably stuff like Bubba Hotep and Cooper's Christmas and Nothing But Trouble, just obscure movies that almost no one has seen. But this is actually a real a very famous actor that there's no way that anyone that lives in this world would not be extremely familiar with.
So famous, would you say A-lister?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Is he still alive?
Yes.
Huh. 20 questions.
Yeah. Are we going this game?
I'm sure people have guessed Nicolas Cage. That was my other one.
I want to be
sure someone had already guessed that.
Well, Car Campit said Nicolas Cage, and I said, that was, no, that's not it. And he said that wasn't a guess.
So nobody has guessed Nick Cage yet.
Oh man.
So speaking of Car Campit, are you guys going to Childerberg?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because I wanted to get to that, and I
hate to give other podcasts a plug
especially when it's that podcast.
Yeah, especially when it's that podcast.
Yeah, I am. So for those that don't know, Childerberg is going to be the second weekend in June. That's June 8th, 9th. Yeah, so it's Jacob from Tasting Anarchy podcast and Carr from I always forget the name of their
the Friends Against Government.
Is that what it's called?
Is that what it is?
If you ever listened to our podcast early on, I got it wrong for 7 weeks in a row, and then it kind of almost became a meme. I think the first thing I ever said was
Friends Against Anarchy?
No, I said, yes, Friends Against Anarchy. And I was like, well, that's definitely not right.
They just call it the Bird Show.
Yeah.
So, I think we're going to be there.
Oh, awesome. I am going to be there, and so I'm going to make a fruitcake ahead of time. I'm going to post a picture of it on Twitter or somewhere, and I'm going to run a contest that whoever guesses.
You love these guessing games.
Maybe do like a 50-50 or something, and to raise money for Childerberg. To vote, you got to throw in a couple bucks or something, and whoever comes closest to the weight of the fruitcake wins the 50-50. And then we eat it at Childerberg.
Who's we? I don't. It's interesting that you use the plural there.
I'll have you know there are plenty of very bullish people on fruitcake. I'm also considering riding my tractor down there, take a week or two, and then just doing like a hayride thing and collecting people.
I assumed that's how you would travel.
You got to start like now.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'll get you about as far as Delaware.
No, if I did it today, I went on Google Maps and figured it out today. If I drove straight through, I could do it.
For gas?
No e-brakes.
Well, no, I mean we'll just do mid driving refueling.
Okay.
It would be in under 6 days.
Wow. Okay.
My max speed is 12 miles an hour.
Wow.
So that's in third gear. I haven't checked the elevations either. I don't know if there's a much higher elevation here or in Texas that's going to affect it. If it's the same, going uphill and downhill, it's going to even it out if it's the same elevation. But if there's
Childerberg would get quite a bit of publicity. I feel like you could work that in somehow.
Just Forrest Gump's the tractor back and forth across the U.S.
Yeah. I get to Maryland and I can't go any further. The hill's too high.
Oh man, that'd be great.
It'd be great. There might be like an absurd amount of people that show up to this.
That's kind of what that's what it seems like.
It's got to be an annual event.
Well, you guys know that this was my idea, right? I'm taking all the credit for this. This happened when we were on the Friends of Government, Friends Against Government.
Friends with Government.
I'm telling you, it's become a meme. I don't want to say the shortened version of it. It makes me feel dirty, but Friends Against Government podcast. We were guests on their show, and that's where the idea was born. That's also where the cryptid known as the Road Toad was born on that same episode.
So it's basically your show.
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because I didn't think either of them were creative enough to be able to pull all the stuff they do off.
Nowhere near creative enough.
No.
They ride the tailcoats of all their guests.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with that.
Coattails.
Yeah, that should be a good time. Like you said, I think there are going to be a lot of people, so I would try to. I'm not really actually sure how this reservation system is going to work because there's a finite set of spaces. I'm going to actually do the car camping thing, so I don't need a wide footprint. But I just imagine like people like showing up in like coach buses and like RVs. Like it just turns into like a NASCAR a NASCAR tailgating event.
Speaking of buses, do you know how I hope there's like a trip of like this big Greyhound bus rolls up with like old people.
Yes.
And they like share the campground with us. Like how they
it'll be their worst weekend ever.
Well, I don't know.
You never know.
Yeah. Could be their greatest weekend ever. Especially because I'm pretty sure that old people like fruitcake. So
if anyone does, it's probably them.
There it is.
Yeah, we gotta talk off here because I have an idea about the Peaceful Treason fundraising attempt at Childerberg, and it's going to involve antagonizing someone who we've just previously talked about, and also
we've already antagonized.
Also, one of the worst beers known to man, Yingling. Back of the woods. I've got some ideas with that, but I don't want to spoil it just now. So we'll talk.
I'm going to go on that because I have a story about that. So it was in August of this past year. Carr came up to Philly. I think he had like a wedding he was going to, and so Carr came up to Philly, and I picked him up at the airport. So it was me and him hung out with Slappy, and I took him to a bar in Philly, and Yuengling is from Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is what, like 50 miles out northwest of Philly, Slappy?
Yeah, give or take.
So yeah, it's close enough to Philly to be like a Philly
America's oldest brewery.
Yeah. And in this area, Yuengling is, you go to a bar and you ask for a lager, and that's Yuengling, which
you get a Yuengling.
It bothers me because I think it's just a mediocre beer. But to each their own. And so we went to this bar called South Philly Tap House. It was a nice little bar.
Free advertising for them.
Yeah. We're going to get a ton of business now. So we're in there and we're ordering drinks, and Carr is obviously excited because he finally gets to be in the area where Yuengling is produced. Although I'm sure he's done this 8,000 times, but whatever. And order Yuengling. So he asks for Yuengling, and they say, "Oh, we don't have any here." And I have no idea. Like I love to rip on people for everything, but I would not do that to him on purpose. And the look on his face looked like someone took all the puppies in the world and killed all of them all at once.
And he turned to you and assumed it was your fault.
I immediately was like, dude, I had no idea. I'm sorry.
There's the one thing with Yuengling you get around here is they're non-union. So people who take that seriously are like anti-Yuengling.
Oh.
Okay.
So you will find bars without it.
Yeah, I know he had rough luck on his long drive because he went through Arkansas, which has some really old school liquor laws, and there's dry counties, and it's actually kind of tricky to buy beer sometimes in Arkansas. So when we went camping that time, I brought him one and only one, and I was briefly tempted just to pour it out in front of him.
Yeah, Pennsylvania has some dumb liquor laws too, but since I live so close to Delaware, for the purposes, nope. I buy all my alcohol in Pennsylvania. If I don't, I pay all the taxes that I need to on any alcohol purchased outside of the state. Or I stay in Delaware and enjoy the alcohol there.
And wait till you're sober and drive home.
Of course.
And you definitely don't haul all your empty cans and bottles behind your tractor to a state with a generous refund policy, right?
Nope, never do that. So while we're on the topic, we all have a beer in front of us, and like the intro I did, here's another thing to make you guys comfortable with this podcast is let's do our own little cerveza of the week.
All right.
I don't know the tune off.
It's a banjo. A little plonk.
Why
don't you guys kick it off?
Sure. We are splitting a bomber. One of our favorite mainstays from Great Divide Brewing out of Colorado is their Yeti series, for obvious reasons, being the greatest cryptid. It's a really good imperial stout. What they've been doing is branching off and doing variants lately. I think this is the first time I've had this particular iteration, which is their chocolate cherry Yeti.
Mm.
And I'm not a huge cherry fan in my beer, but this is subtle enough to where it's an absolute delight. It really is a phenomenal beer.
Yeah, the cherry's barely there. This is a very rich version of Yeti. I've had the oak, vanilla. We had the chai latte fairly recently, which that was a bit much. This is I think they're owning in on kind of the right spot of sweet, of chocolate, of malt. Like it's solid. It checks in at a 9.5% alcohol volume, so it'll do the trick, doggy.
Yeah, I think when you have the chocolate is a good way to balance any sweetness from or tart from the cherry. Chocolate and cherry is it like a beer version of a chocolate cherry cordial?
No, not nearly that. I've had some like that too, where you get some serious tartness and everything. This is very smooth, almost like more of like a maybe like a more of a chocolate cake with just a little bit of cherry, splash of grenadine maybe in the frosting.
So could you pour it on a bowl of vanilla ice cream or something?
Actually, the suggested food pairings, it says braised short ribs, caramelized baby carrots, which is really odd, Danish blue cheese, and vanilla cheesecake with sour cherries, which sounds amazing to me.
Oh, yeah.
So
That does sound good.
Yeah, that's a meal.
that's amazing.
You drink enough of these, and
Actually,
you open your fridge for those ingredients, and you'll see the Yeti right there staring at you.
Yeah, I'm always up for short rib.
It's hard to come by in our neck of the woods. When I find some, I usually have to fill up my freezer.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Slappy, what do you have?
I'm drinking a Two-Hearted Owl from Bell's, Comstock, Michigan. I describe it, but I would just describe it as it tastes really good, and it's my favorite IPA. Yeah, from the Upper Peninsula. I know that much about it.
I concur. It's a good one. You can never go wrong with it.
Have we featured that one on the podcast?
Yes, we did.
I'm almost, I'm sure that we have. I don't know what episode, but I'm sure we have.
You can find it virtually anywhere in the continental U.S. year round. It's one of the best.
And they're a independent brewer, right? They're not owned by any of the big guys. Types.
It's complicated. I was just reading an article this morning about it. I think for what the industry defines as independent, they are, but it seems like
I guess distribution or whatever probably has some issues.
Yeah, there's some pending, I guess, merging that's about to occur with, I think, them and like Avery Brewing and someone else.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
interesting.
So maybe not for long.
Still tastes good. Hopefully, it will continue to.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking a St. Bernardus Pater 6. So it's good.
What would you rate it on?
What style is it?
1 to 10.
It's an ale. I would say it's funny. Whenever you guys, when I listen to your podcast and you rate beers, I'm like, I have a very hard time. Just like I had a hard time picking who my favorite actor is, putting it to a number. But I would say I would put this at an 8. I mean, I don't think it's the best Belgian, but if you're worried about getting into a lot of like the Trappist stuff, I recommend this as a starter because it's very drinkable. It's really not that heavy. It's got a little bit of that slight sour taste that you might expect from one of these, but
yeah, those traditional European yeast can put some interesting flavors out there, even if they're not trying to be a sour. It's a different base than what we're used to over here in the States.
Yeah, and it does, like, it's funny. Years ago, before I was into a lot of stuff like food and drink, like it's a nice, very nice color, like a dark amber. So from the top, it's kind of lighter, and from the side, like it's I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm correlating with Beer Advocate, and it is an exceptional beer. According to them, it is a Belgian double. And you're right, yeah, double would be a good introduction. You definitely don't want to jump in the deep end and start down in triples and quads. Burn out your taste buds and your liver real quick, and your wallet for that matter.
I have a really hard time rating Belgians to begin with. It's not my.
I really like Belgian beer.
Yeah, I'm actually drinking out of a Golden Drac.
Oh, nice.
Which is, I love that beer. Yeah. And the Golden Drac 2000 or something is like I forget what it is, but man, I spent like almost $30 on a 4-pack of that once, and it was well worth it.
It definitely is. I almost don't ever want to do a blind taste test with really expensive beer and cheaper beer because I'm afraid of if price tag is setting those expectations to my taste buds.
Yeah,
I don't want to be one of those jerks that just get proven wrong, that it was all about the price and the rarity that actually tricked you.
Mm-hmm. The box wine tastes better than the.
I like to think I could think I can pick it out, but I don't think I'll ever actually put myself to the test, just because my whole world could come crashing down on me.
Yeah, I mean, I question those things when you hear like with it happens a lot with wine where they say like, oh, blind. I've even heard it where they had a blind taste test and these people who were supposed to be wine experts couldn't tell the difference between white and red. I have a hard time believing that. And I like wine, and I'm not like I'm very much like there are $10 bottles of wine that I think are really good. I think you can get decent bottles of wine like that, but for more like for beer and a lot of like liquors, like I like a lot of the whiskeys like bourbons and rye. And as the price goes up, at least in my experience, like without a doubt,
so much better.
Yeah. So for that stuff, I'm pretty sure I could do a blind taste test, and I actually did that with gin. I had some. I would because I like gin as well, and what I would do is, as I was finishing bottles of gin, I would leave a little bit, and then what I did one time is I had a couple bottles, and I did a blind taste test so I could try to pick which one I like best, and then without knowing what it was, and I think it ended up being Blue Coat is my favorite gin. I thought Hendrick's was going to be it because that's like the stereotypical, pretty decent gin. But
man, I can't not pick out a
I was going to say it
to save my life.
I think I definitely have never had a nice gin.
Really?
Maybe.
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
I was listening to someone's podcast. Maybe it was Friends Against Government where they were talking about drinking gin, and they mentioned like, well, how do you drink it? And he said like, oh, you don't drink that straight. And I'm like, oh, I do sometimes.
I think that's right because I think Bird likes gin. He hates beer.
He got me on The Botanist. I bought a bottle of that. That was good.
Oh, I have had that one. Yeah, that one I probably could pick because you could get like I couldn't pick out the notes, but there's like just more botanicals in it. Like there's more.
Yeah. And I bought a bottle recently, Nolet. I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's very like just a lot of stuff going on, very strong and powerful. But yeah, Blue Coat, it's a Philadelphia distillery, and everyone I talk to that's had it says it's their favorite gin. So if you see that, and it's in a nice like blue colored bottle, so I recommend it.
All right, we'll have to give it a go.
Give it a go.
Speaking of labels and maybe people misidentifying what's inside of them.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, only after like 40 minutes of introductions.
Yeah, and this is the good thing about this is there's not much here, so this should be quick to get through.
Yeah.
So should we give Teri Kanefield her moment, her 15 minutes of fame?
Yeah. So Teri Kanefield is an author and a lawyer from UC Berkeley. She has a little blog here, and she has a Trump investigation site called Russia-investigation-summary.com.
That gives her,
because Russia-investigation.com was not available.
that gives her some pretty good credibility, right?
Yeah, she's a very credible source here.
What is it with Berkeley?
Good question. She's from, I mean, we assume Berkeley, right? But what she has on her profile here is the beautiful Central California coast.
Yeah.
So she's got 50,000 followers, which is slightly more than I have.
And I will say, because we're going to ridicule this thread, not this woman necessarily, but the thread.
Oh, yeah.
She is an intelligent person, and I think that's what drives me just right out of the gates. That's what drives me crazy about people who argue against these, capitalist, anarcho-capitalist, libertarian ideas. Is they're so intelligent, but at the same time, it's like their views are so myopic. They cannot imagine scenarios outside of the state, and you can see that in her thread. It's like, you're so smart. Can't you just take a little bit of that brain power and imagine competition or imagine whatever it is? It's like they never even get that far. They just want to critique these really focused things, and outside of that, there's nothing in their minds. But she's definitely a smart person, and that's where I get the most frustrated.
Yeah, normally in situations, because Slappy and I talk about this a lot, maybe not always on the podcast, but it's something that we talk about is the kind of the way libertarians like flip out over stuff, and we see something like this and lose our minds. And is it productive that we do that? And I was thinking about this today. I was driving home from work, and it's like normally Twitter is a great place to get fodder for things to talk about on the podcast, and we do it a lot. And when it's just like some random person that does it, like we wouldn't be using their name because it's just like some random, it's just some guy that comes across a libertarian idea, and he's obviously never thought about it. Doesn't have really any platform other than Twitter, and he just throws something off the cuff. But it's good to talk about because that's what the average person might think. But like you said, this is an intelligent woman, a lawyer, an author, someone with 50,000 followers. So she's
a public figure.
Yeah,
right. So it's like, man, all right, now we're going to use your name, and now we're going to go to town with it, because if you're going to be a thought leader, a thought leader, I think that's fair to say that she probably at least
considers
once
herself one,
right or strives to be that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to do that, you can't be unbelievably ignorant when you do it. Because like you said, she's probably a smart woman, but obviously extremely ignorant. So
yeah.
So I'm actually going to start by I was scrolling down because she has a long thread here, and she actually wrote it out on her blog. So, but if it turns out it's 29 tweets long. But at the bottom of it, so she did these 29 tweets yesterday morning, the April 7th. And then it says 10 hours ago. So this morning she added a few, and I'm gonna
on her blog.
Read it real quick. No, this is on that Twitter thread. She replied at the end. So she says, and this is her tweets. I usually try to read and respond to good questions, but the comments are so jammed with libertarians telling me I'm stupid and don't understand libertarianism. I can't possibly read them all. I did read many of them. While often contradictory, different libertarians arguing opposite positions in different places, the libertarian responses were generally consistent on 5 points. We don't need government because we don't have to worry about the principle that whoever grabs first gets. She goes on and on. If I scroll down to the bottom, she says, my point in writing this thread was not to justify or even explain libertarianism, but to show why the ideals upon which libertarianism is based are a danger to democracy. Those of us who want to save democracy need to understand the people trying to undermine and destroy it. So, well, I mean, we're going to go through some of this. And of course, as we already alluded to, and as she acknowledged, all these libertarians are saying she's wrong and doesn't understand it. I kind of agree. I don't like this democracy, and I don't think it's a good way to organize society. So she's not all wrong there.
It's a compliment that she called libertarianism a danger to democracy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, hell yeah.
That's the one correct thing that you said. We are a danger to democracy.
Yeah, it's like I'm happy to read that. So should we start? We'll start at the top, and I'll just kind of read them one by one and comment as we go.
And I'll say, I don't know. That didn't just appear on the blog, by the way. She did add those tweets that you just read. Those tweets are added to the end of this thread.
Yeah.
So right after 29, so it's all there.
Cool.
Yep.
I didn't know if you were reading from the blog or actually reading from the thread.
Back on the thread now. Figure she breaks it up pretty good, so we can kind of go through it until whenever we feel like stopping, I guess. Okay, so the first tweet is, and she warns us, it's a thread. Libertarians, destroyers of democracy. Libertarian Peter Thiel said, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. And then she links catounbound.org and thanks someone for the quote. She says, I'm surprised it took Thiel, an intelligent Stanford law grad, so long to figure out that freedom, as defined by libertarians, isn't compatible with democracy. When I say democracy, I mean liberal democracy in the classical sense. And then she links a definition from uslegal.com. Not much to comment on there unless you had something to say. I'll keep reading.
Nope.
Keep going.
libertarianism, according to David Bow, is it Bose or Boaz? How does he say that?
I say Boaz.
Boaz. Yeah, libertarianism, according to David Boaz, means, quote, the only actions that should be forbidden by law are those that involve the initiation of force against those who have not themselves used force. Libertarians view government regs and the agencies that promulgate them as a form of force. Let's pin this down on specifics.
Yeah.
Does individual... Yeah, so do you want to say anything there? First of all, she's talking about libertarians viewing government... Oh, no, never mind. I take that back. She does say...
Just to provide some context on David Boaz, he is the executive vice president of Cato Institute. I don't know if he still is, but he was. I think he still is.
He wrote a few books too.
But
he has, yeah.
It's interesting because there's been a huge. We were talking about this off air, but there's been a huge sort of rift in the libertarian movement. You've got some that are lean a lot more heavily minarchist, and then some that lean more purist, anarchist. And Cato and Mises, those two institutes kind of separate that. So it's interesting that she's kind of cherry picking definitions, really, really broad definitions from one libertarian mind, who a lot of libertarians would disagree with vehemently.
Right.
So that I find that interesting right out of the gates.
Yeah, I mean, I would attribute it to that because it makes sense later on with what she says. I think I just attribute that to just being they're more mainstream, and that's like I don't think she understands half of what she says. I think she's trying to be like, don't you understand that this means that they don't want any government? Like it's a boogeyman type thing. We're all like, yeah, right on.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, but even still, I mean, I know that Cato and Boaz aren't, especially from those that are more maybe Mises Institute sympathetic. I mean, I don't think that's very controversial from any libertarian, kind of what his definition. It's basically the non-aggression principle.
Right.
So, I mean, it's at least nice is that we're like, those two sides are like always at each other's throats, but at least we agree on like that main thing.
Right.
So,
and we see where her values lie with this next tweet about what the first examples that come to her mind are just the most, well, I guess one's a little tricky, but the other two are just victimless.
I don't find that tricky at all, actually. I'm anxious to get to this next tweet.
Yeah, so let's go.
Yeah, so she writes, let's pin this down on specifics. Does individual liberty mean I can build a factory and dump toxins into the air and water? Can I trade stocks on inside information? Can I sell my luxury condos to Russian oligarchs and hide the source of the money?
So I just want to jump in and say the last two, definite yes. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Information, that's fantastic. The problems there.
Well, I mean, let's even take, because the insider information, because that always sounds like it's something weird. But I mean,
we have an episode on that before.
I think we talked about it a little bit.
I would say insider trading is desirable for the market.
Yes, because if you like people who don't have insider information are good chance they're just kind of guessing. And do you really want resources allocated by people who are just guessing, or do you want resources allocated by people who know what's about to happen?
Right.
Like they're the ones that are sending the correct signals on what to do with your wealth.
With a lot of this thread here, there's like rabbit holes we could go down. We could probably have full episodes on all of her points, because anyone who listens to our show knows we can take the stock market and the importance of the stock market and tie it all back to the Federal Reserve and how Bitcoin can help solve some of those problems. Because as it is today, your money that you save loses value. You have to invest it. You're forced to invest it in different securities that most people know nothing about. You're just putting your money and trusting, and you're saying you have to beat inflation. And so there's that incentive that kind of forces us into the market. I don't know that as many people would be in the market if we had sound money.
Yeah. So I want to tackle the first one just really quickly, because I think it highlights a paradox of statist thinking. And it, just to repeat it, it says, does individual liberty mean I can build a factory and dump toxins into the air and water? And the short answer to that is yes. That's what that means. But what happens and what would happen in a laissez-faire free market system is a lot more nuanced than that, because the fact of the matter is human beings value clean environment. We value a healthy place to live. We value clean water. We value clean air. And when human beings value something, the market responds to that, right? There's this balance between sellers and buyers in the marketplace. And so the producers, the people producing these goods that are creating these toxins, would be incentivized by the consumers to not do that. Their competitors would start holding their feet to the flame on that, saying, do you want your competitors doing this? And so there's an intrinsic sharpening that happens in the marketplace. But when we depend on the state to do that, I think that's more dangerous. It opens up it opens up these factories for protection, shadowy protection that says you can go ahead and do this, all the while the consumers are depending on the state for these protections. I just don't see how it's a better system. I really don't.
There's no shortage of examples of pretty large states polluting a lot.
Absolutely.
The biggest polluter in the entire earth is the Department of Offense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there used to be precedent before back in the day when if a business did pollute someone's land, then you could take them to court and settle it, because if you're used to I think there's a story where this woman at her house was near a railroad or something, and she would hang her clothes out to dry, and the soot from the trains would make it dirty, and she sued the railroad and won, because it's But then in the government, in their infinite wisdom, said that, well, we don't want to prevent industrialization from happening, so we're going to start siding with the companies to make sure that they're not getting, they're able to keep rolling and improve themselves. And that's what happened. If we actually respected property rights, then it's pretty cut and dry and pretty clear. So,
but how would there be courts without the government? That's my favorite.
I know. I'm sure we'll get to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, and I don't want to say like in defense of the normies out there, but that's a good question to ask, and we do have answers for that, of course. But I will continue reading. She says, "Can I chop down all the redwoods and sell the lumber? I suggest that libertarians don't mind Trump's law breaking because he's breaking the laws they don't think should exist. They love property rights, but who decides who owns what? Like, who gets to own all the redwoods?"
Wait a second. Has Trump been cutting down trees? Is he doing like a reverse George Washington? He's like, I'm going to cut down all the redwoods. I got so much everybody's tree.
We have the best redwoods in this country, and we want to produce the best furniture with these redwoods. No one has better redwoods than I do.
Like, that's a dig at like Russiagate, right? Like that's
got to be
pointing that in where it absolutely doesn't fit at all.
I don't. She just had to draw Trump into this somehow, and I don't understand how it fits.
Right. She doesn't mention what laws Trump is breaking. So I guess depending on which law it is, I may think it's good that he breaks the law. I don't think it's really great that he's a president, but I mean, if he's killing, well, I guess he is killing. We don't like those laws being broken.
Well, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of a law that like Trump has been breaking that libertarians are like, yeah, good job. I don't know. The only thing I think libertarians have.
What laws is he breaking? I mean, we can disagree with the law, but is he doing things outside the law? I'm not sure. I mean,
military strikes.
Let me go read her blog, Russia-investigation-summary.com, and I'll let you know what laws he's breaking.
Yeah, that's good resource. I'm sure he's breaking laws there like every other president has. Right. I guess they would argue the precedent's been set or something, or I don't know.
But I mean, libertarians are pretty consistent about criticizing any president for war. So,
right, but she's specifically saying breaking laws. So I don't know if I'm not a legal expert. I thought we had to declare war, but I'm guessing there's a legal way they do it. Because every president does it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure in Trump's defense, all these wars were already started. Trump has yet to start a war.
He continues them all, but he hasn't started any.
Well, he bombed Syria.
That war was already happening, wasn't it?
Not officially.
Well, we were in Syria in 2011.
But not bombing Syrian.
No, that's true.
Assets.
Look, we're not defending Trump here.
Right, I'm just
we have to be very careful because Teri Kanefield obviously thinks that we're Trump supporters.
Clearly.
I don't get chopped down a much smaller tree, let alone a redwood. I think he would lie about chopping down a cherry tree, but he would fail to do so.
Well, I don't think we have to get too hung up on the Libertarian Trump stuff right here because she gets a lot more obvious.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
But about the property rights stuff, like who decides who owns what? I mean, are you really going to criticize libertarians on not having theories on how property gets developed? I mean, come on.
The next tweet is a pretty good example. I think we can go run off it.
Yeah, continue on. Yeah. Does ownership go to whoever grabs it first? Let's say 20 libertarians move to an island and set up a libertarian utopia. How do they decide who owns what? Do they divide the island into 20 parts? What if I end up owning the only source of fresh water?
I don't even know what to say. I mean, if you own the only source of fresh water, there are many ways to get water. There are many systems of rainwater collection where you can get water. I find this to be a really bad example.
There's also, I mean, if you're on an island and you have all this fresh water, I mean, we're assuming, right, that this isn't a metropolis, know. It might make sense for her to trade some of it.
Yeah. That sounds like a very, very profitable thing that you would want to share it.
Exactly. But isn't what she's getting at, though, the natural monopoly?
Probably.
It sounds like she's alluding to the possibility of natural monopolies, and that's one area where the market fails in society. And what's interesting about that is, I mean, there are so few natural monopolies that exist in the world today that it just seems disingenuous to point to that as a potential flaw in free market anarchism.
Right, because what if of these 20 people on this island, 19 dudes and her? She just has the greatest natural monopoly right there. She's gonna have minions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. But like even if this natural monopoly did exist, that one person has all the fresh water, I mean, what good does hoarding it do? Other than if you're just an awful miser that just has it and doesn't want to share. I don't understand. Like when people say this, well, what if someone owns all of this one resource? All right, well, they'll probably want to get profit from it because it's the law of marginal utility. I mean, when you have all of it, I mean, what good does it do to you to have like all of this stuff?
So you can kill off all of your potential consumers.
And
you can live by yourself on the island with all the water.
Because that extra, those extra gallons that you have that you're never going to use are of a lot more value to the 19 other people on the island than they are to you. So that's called an opportunity for profit. So even if you are really selfish and you really just want to accumulate wealth and stuff, you have a huge incentive to make deals with people.
And does she want to show us the status example of this, where the government takes over land and sells it to Nestle for $1, like takes over bodies of water and sells it to Nestle for $1 through cronyism? Like it'd be one thing if she had a good rebuttal to this hypothetical, but in actual reality, it's worse than her hypothetical.
And kind of a Tom Woods take on it. If the free market did that somehow, she would be up in arms about it.
Yeah, right.
But when government does it, it's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, in her defense, there is one really good example of the government managing the water supply and doing a really bang-up job that the market could ever do.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what I'm about to say?
Yeah, no mention needed.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Actually, my own water supply was poisoned by the Navy. There's a base that's now closed, but they had to stop all the water wells, and we got rerouted about 3 years ago, and we're still rerouted to another township because our water was poisoned by our government.
Was it full of semen?
Yes, I think that's exactly what was in there. A lot of it, a lot of them. I mean, and
Maybe try to fix it. Yeah, just swimming.
yeah, no, it was on a Navy air base, and this foam they used to put out fires or something got into the groundwater, and
Well, government operating something would never allow their stuff to catch on fire, though. I don't.
So I don't know why.
So why are you lying to us, Slappy?
Good call.
They just need to put that stuff in the fracking areas that have flammable tap water. They just need to put that extinguishing foam into their water supply.
All right, so the free market means I can charge whatever I want, right? So I live like royalty, and the others do my work. Libertarian utopia? The Libertarian Party platform contains this sentence. 2 other major libertarian websites have similar sentences, and this sentence says, all persons are entitled to keep the fruits of their labor. We call for the repeal of the income tax, the abolishment of the Internal Revenue Service, and all federal programs and services not required under the U.S. Constitution. Chigatis.
So, I mean, I'm kind of torn on this because I don't.
You like the income tax?
I don't believe that I don't believe that the Constitution really. I mean, even if the Constitution justified any kind of tax, I would be against it. So I don't find the Constitution to be this holy document. That a lot of we alluded to it a few minutes ago. Some libertarians are constitutionalists, but the rest of it I agree with. Yeah, the fruits of your labor belong to you. That's the foundation of everything that we believe. And anything that's taken away from you it's done through force. So yeah, we want to abolish that.
Why are these in the same tweet? Like, these are 2 distinct things she's talking about. She mentions charging whatever she wants.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
a good point.
to tag, like, that's the government charging whatever they want. I don't see the connection.
Yeah, I think her connection is so you can charge whatever you want, right? And that also means that people are going to pay whatever you charge.
Yeah.
So I live like royalty and others do my work. And then to back that up, she says, see, libertarians say you should keep the fruits of your labor and have no income tax. So I'm selling all this stuff and getting so wealthy, and I'm charging whatever price I want, and everyone's buying it.
So she has literally no concept of how the market works, it sounds like, because
she's never gone into a store and said, that's a little expensive, I don't want to buy that.
Right, I'm going to go somewhere else and find something a little cheaper.
Oh, this just made me an idea. We should email her and say, hey, do you need a coffee mug?
$100 mug.
And buy a $100 mug that we're selling. Oh, we finally found a customer.
Yes. It's the free market, so you have to buy it. That's how the free market works.
She's got lawyer and author money, so here she is, living like royalty already. She can spend some money.
Meanwhile, I look for prices when I shop, so
How much could a frozen banana cost? $10.
Oh man.
So
we're only at number 6.
Yeah, well, that's where we're going to move it along.
All right,
moving it along here. The idea is that unless the Constitution specifically calls for a program or service, we shouldn't have it. I emailed all 3 sites and asked which federal programs and services are required under the Constitution. I asked nicely. Nobody responded.
Because there should be no government program. So.
Yeah, right. And should we quote the great Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and say that she's not entitled to a response just because she asked a question or whatever that was when Ben Shapiro wanted to debate her, and she said that's catcalling by asking her to respond. So, Terry, stop catcalling us libertarians.
Yeah.
Perhaps nobody answered because there are no specific services required by the Constitution. So by libertarian logic, we shouldn't have any.
Yes.
Correct.
But wait, this is something you three may not have considered before.
Oh.
Because here's what they overlook. The Constitution grants the federal government power to create laws that provide for the common welfare.
Ooh.
So
Pack it in, boys. Pack it in.
Got welfare right in it.
Yeah.
it says it right there. We have federal agencies and lots of laws because they promote the common welfare. And about those taxes libertarians don't like, industry can't function without infrastructure like highways.
Oh, there it is.
Who is going to pay for it? It seems to me that privatize equals whoever grabs it first. First gets.
That's actually not correct. Privatize means whoever corners the market first. But what they don't understand is there's always competition for that cornering. So if someone else does it better, they can then corner the market. It's a revolving door. It's not like once you grab it up, it's yours indefinitely. That's not how this works. I don't understand the logic here.
There are private roads.
Yes, there are.
Private roads have existed like forever, and they exist today, and I'm just so. I don't think that at this point, I don't think we have to explain who will build the roads to anyone who's listening to this podcast.
Unless Terry, if you're listening, we appreciate it, and contact us. We'll have you on the show, and we'll talk about who will build the roads. Okay, so she continues. This book, and she's pointing to David Boaz's A Manifesto for Freedom, is a well-written piece of propaganda, complete with an incorrect, simplified, and whitewashed, literally, view of American history. Boaz tells us America was founded on the precepts of individual liberty. We can stop right there. The nation was founded on the institution of slavery and taking land from native people. Whoever grabs gets. Boaz, like most libertarians, loves quoting Thomas Jefferson. When Jefferson said beautiful things about liberty, he didn't mean for everyone. He meant white men. Libertarians overlook the fact that there were two rival factions at the founding of the nation, the Jeffersonians and the Hamiltonians. Hamilton was anti-slavery and in favor of a strong central government. Jefferson thought individual liberty meant the freedom to own slaves. All right. I think she's been watching too many Broadway plays because I don't believe there's any evidence that Hamilton was I'm not a history major, but I don't believe there's any evidence that Hamilton was anti-slavery. It certainly wasn't a big part of who he was.
Well, does it have to be that? Like, all right, let's say
that's factually incorrect,
right? But let's say it's true, Hamilton was anti-slavery and in favor of strong central government. That doesn't mean that the two have to go together.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean, you look at there's plenty of other people that favored central government and were fine with slave. I mean, look at the Confederacy. They were pretty. The Confederate government was not exactly libertarian paradise.
Yeah, so you're right. This is, as Will said earlier, this is laced with logical fallacies. This right here is both a straw man and a false equivalency in the same tweet. This is a nothing burger. She said nothing.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. Like, okay, let's say that Jefferson was like really wrong about stuff, and maybe America was founded on bad things. That doesn't mean that libertarian philosophy is wrong.
Right.
It's silly. Appeals to authority that with some, like I said, flawed history. So correct me if I'm wrong though, Jefferson, do libertarians hold Jefferson in a higher regard amongst the founding fathers? Because I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I don't really hear it much.
In the minarchist crowd, I think so. Maybe in like and I don't want to lump minarchists in the Beltway libertarians, but I know there are a lot of people that like Jefferson a lot that are libertarians, and they're probably not more of the ANCAP stuff. But I mean, we could take stuff from the founding fathers, the good stuff they said. I think Jefferson had some decent thoughts and ideas, especially given the context of what he was doing in the time he was in. And you can appreciate decent stuff that he did without saying, well, I also agree with him holding slaves. Like it's so stupid. You have to agree with every single thing that someone is about them. Like whoever Terry is going to support for president next, and it's probably going to be whatever the Democrats throw up. Is she going to say that she absolutely agrees 100 with every single thing this person stands for? No, that's insane.
Right. Even if Jefferson was against slavery, if he were to come out and say it back then, all of the elites and leading scientific community at that time would have called him a race denier or something, right? Because they were just all following the leading scientific theories of races.
Right. And so just for the record, because I did Google, was Hamilton an abolitionist? And I got an article from the Harvard Gazette here. Professor Gordon Reed says, in the sense of the Ellis Island immigrant narrative, he was not an immigrant. She said he was not pro-immigrant either. He was not an abolitionist, she added. He bought and sold slaves for his in-laws, and opposing slavery was never at the forefront of his agenda. So I rest my case.
Wow.
It's just, So I guess she saw a Broadway play, and maybe it's a very good play. I don't know.
She wants him to be anti-slavery, so I think that matters more than what he actually believed.
True. And with Jefferson's, every time he talked about individual liberty, he was referring to the right to own slaves, right? I mean, he always says that, right? So anyway, the view of the Confederacy was that it was fighting for liberty, defending the Southern way of life. When the Supreme Court declared segregation unconstitutional in 1954, libertarians denounced the decision as federal overreach. They also opposed affirmative action. Sure. I mean, I think we could have a better discussion on that than leaving it there. But
well, the thing is, and we talked about this before, Slappy, but like, why were who instituted the Jim Crow laws, and why were they instituted?
Right. Because you wouldn't need a law for segregation if people were doing it, right? If it was like, I'm guessing the younger generation was coming around, and I'm not saying things were perfect and wonderful. I'm sure there was plenty of problems, but when the government sees these businesses starting to hire black people and serve them, then you might want to step in with a law and say you're not allowed to.
I'd like to say something about this is a free market success story
Jim Crow laws?
Regarding affirmative action.
Jim Crow laws.
So about affirmative action, this is another interesting dynamic here. She says that libertarians don't favor affirmative action, which is actually not true. We would just rather see a private market solution for that. And I heard an interesting conversation today on the Joe Rogan podcast. Kevin Hart, the comedian, was on there. He's talking about one of his projects. He's working with Bank of America and Jamie Dimon, not Bank of America, but Chase Bank, right? And Jamie Dimon. And they're working on a big project to essentially educate poor urban, youth who don't understand anything about finance or banking or anything like that. And Chase Bank's angle here is, of course, the more people that you educate and bring into the world of finance, well, the better that is for our bank, obviously. So it's really interesting. That's a free market solution. It's a win-win solution. That is free market affirmative action. Just a really small example, but that's that's kind of amazing that of course the free market has a solution for this.
If only the market could force kids to take 15,000 hours of training in a room, they would be, imagine what you could learn if you force kids to do that.
Oh man.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll never have an example of that.
Yeah, if we could only have a counterexample of the government doing that, man.
Yeah.
So she continues, McLean enraged libertarians by arguing that libertarianism is based in racism. Libertarians are in favor of individual liberty, which to them means the government can't tell them who to hire or who they have to let into their restaurants. We've talked about that plenty. I mean, to say that's, if your only explanation for wanting liberty to, the freedom to decide who you serve is the only explanation that you could possibly want that is because you're a racist is absurd. And like you just mentioned in your previous example, Chase Bank wants to educate people on finance because that helps them. Just like if I open a restaurant and if I'm turning away, 15% of the population, that's just stupid for business. And a competitor could easily win that business from you. And I wouldn't be in business long. So.
Yeah, if I was a competitor in that same town, I would just absolutely love it.
Oh yeah.
I was just about to say that. Like that would be the great if you lived in a town and one of the main businesses that serve some market said, we're not letting any black people or any non-white people into our business. Like, thank you. Like, wow, you just gave me a huge business opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's another good one. When asked why the Libertarian Party consisted largely of white men, Boaz said, another way to put that would be well-educated people. Maybe because of coverture laws and hundreds of years of few white men grabbing everything. So I don't know what a coverture law is.
Well, there's a hat tip to a guy, JG Environ, in the picture. Looks exactly like the person who would probably be making this argument.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you're thinking of, the army guy is exactly what he looks like.
Coverture, sometimes spelled Couverture, was a legal doctrine whereby upon marriage, a woman's legal rights and obligations were subsumed by those of her husband in accordance with the wife's legal status of covert. The fuck is that? Oh, excuse my language.
I thought we were going to delete the episode now.
Delete, start over.
Yeah, it's patriarchy. That's what she's saying.
Oh, and that's why they're like, what does that have to? I mean, what does that have to do with libertarianism?
I have no idea because I have no idea.
I think she's equating or conflating libertarianism and political and economic power. That since historically, like white men had, better access to those things. That must mean that they're all libertarians. But there's a ton. I mean, look at this. Look at the government. Who makes up most of the House of Representatives and the Senate?
Oh, that's a good point.
Old cranky white men. So I mean, you gotta look at it.
Libertarian either.
Yeah, you gotta look at both sides of that. To me, just throw that out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Here's the good one. Here's one of the all-star tweets coming up next. One theory is that libertarians align with autocrats, segregationists, and white supremacists because they share a common enemy, liberal democracy and liberal establishment.
I don't get that's crazy.
Where's the alignment with autocrats, segregationists, and white supremacists?
Do autocrats not align with central government? I mean, those are your cronies, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand where she gets this. She's just pulling this out of her butt.
Well, anyone that disagrees with the left is just a one entity. So they're lumped in purely in her mind only. That's gotta
be it. And we've all been around libertarians a while. But this segregationist thing is so strange to me.
Yeah.
I usually see libertarians get excited to see a non-white male.
Yeah.
they might be too accommodating. They're almost trying to practice affirmative action to get more minorities involved.
Absolutely.
You know, we should. No, I can't say that. If people are gonna, what was he gonna say? It's just better off not said.
I always have to fight the urge to like, whenever somebody's like, libertarians are all a bunch of white people, or the race realism arguments. I always want to bring up Kamel Foster. I don't, but I always want to. Kamel is just a brilliant man.
It really is.
He's just so good at what he does. He's a great journalist. He's incredibly smart, and I think of him. I don't bring it up, but I always think of him whenever somebody tries to make that argument. It's like, no, you're wrong. We have Kamel.
And he's like you said, I mean, he's one of the smartest guys out there. He's on, what's the podcast called that he does?
Fifth Column.
Yeah.
And he interviewed Andrew, the new kind of, the UBI guy.
Yang.
Yeah, Andrew Yang. He interviewed him, and I was just so thankful because I had listened to him on Rogan, and Rogan's just like all about Andrew Yang. And then Kamel Foster interviewed him and just held his feet to the fire the whole time. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah, Rogan's a very interesting guy. It kind of seems like no matter who, and he does push back sometimes, and I don't listen to all of his shows, but it seems like no matter who he has on, he's just an accommodating host.
Exactly. I think that's why he's good. And
yeah.
That's what he is. That's what he does, and that's what
he's one of the best in the business. So
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and he has great shows. That's not a knock on him. I do like his podcast. It's very good.
But Kamel's better.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
If you only have so many podcast dollars to spend, throw them Kamel's way.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Libertarians particularly hate it when governments bail out industries. They also like to talk about creative destruction, whereby innovation replaces outdated products and processes and essentially destroys them. They seem to apply creative...
Whoa. I didn't catch this one earlier. What is creative destruction? Is that not the broken window fallacy?
No, I think that is a legitimate thing. It's just like...
So the car, there was a whole industry, and not the car from that other podcast, but the car, it was creative destruction. It destroyed the horse and buggy industry.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Yeah.
But is she now saying that her and the left are in favor of the bank bailouts? Because I thought that's what they ran against.
Seems to be.
And then wouldn't all these green energies be creative destruction?
Hold on. It's
wind energy, solar.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count when it's something she likes.
Oh, of course. I always thought I've always heard this term disruptive, not creative destruction. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase, creative destruction. But I do disruptive. Disrupting the marketplace. Yes, libertarians absolutely favor that. Mm-hmm. I don't.
Or at least neutral to it.
Right. I mean, if something better comes along, let's use that instead of using the other one.
So is she gonna? I just peeked ahead. So she really is gonna defend bank bailouts, huh?
Yeah. So, which is very, very strange. So they seem to apply creative destruction to letting entire industries or banks fail. Let them fail. A new, better thing will arise from the ashes. Here's the problem. If a bank or major industry fails, it will inflict pain and suffering on large numbers of people.
Okay.
No.
So the monetary policy that exists, the central banking, fiat, paper money,
it's a monopoly.
Inflationary monopoly system that the government and Federal Reserve has, you don't think that has caused a lot of pain and suffering on literally every person in the world? Not to mention that it's just like for the four of us, it's making making the money that we have less valuable every second of the day. But this inflationary monetary policy is also what made modern warfare since World War I possible.
Right.
So yeah, you want to get moral high ground. This is where I especially get pissed off with this kind of stuff. You want to try to talk about moral high ground about like, oh, people will suffer if this bank fails. Oh, well,
people have suffered because that bank exists.
Yeah,
right.
Like it is. That is the most like evil thing that exists in the world is the way that the money industry is handled by governments. Like
And never mind the fact that she's ignoring the libertarian solution to this, which is a decentralized monetary platform. We support competition in monetary industry so that when one bank does fail, it doesn't hurt anyone, right? Because you can
you would diversify. You certainly wouldn't put all your money in one spot.
Exactly.
And also just that we also don't believe that one central place should be able to produce money. Like even when you had an actual gold standard, the banks and governments were not creating money. It was people that were going out and mining gold were the ones that were creating the money. So you actually had to put some skin in the game. You were actually doing something economically productive to bring new money into the economy. Now that you just have like, how do these people not see it or acknowledge it at all? The people that can just create money, like how that would be such a huge problem.
It's willful. It's just willful ignorance.
Yeah, especially when she's talking about how libertarians love the rich guy, and they're all the rich power guys. Like, who do you think would hurt the most if a bank fell? Now, sure, there would be problems, but it's not the people who don't have bank accounts aren't going to suffer as much.
Right, because isn't FDIC insurance is only up to like a couple $100,000, right?
Yeah,
so
I don't know what it is.
$50 million in that bank would only even get the insurance payout for a fraction of it. Whereas everyone that lost their $2,000 or whatever in there, that also sucks. It's I don't fully consider myself collapsitarian, but I'm like 99% pretty sympathetic to the message that I want to actually see how this thought experiment would play out. I kind of do want to see the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome situation.
Well, she kind of explains what would happen. So she says, imagine what would happen if a major bank fails. Large numbers of people would lose everything and fall into poverty. If major industries fail, the people who suffer could number in the millions. This brings us to one of many problems with libertarians.
Could I just say something real quick?
Yes.
About that? Doesn't that represent a major security risk in this economy if a major bank fails? So it's
central banking.
Yeah. So talk about moral hazard. Like we have this big bank here and we have to make sure that it doesn't fail. So let's continually bail it out and not let it fail. So what do you think that puts in the minds of the people running this bank? Oh, we should be really careful and manage all this money really carefully and well. No, it's man.
Well, it gets good. Gets better. So did you know libertarians are us four here are fine with widespread suffering, which is why we're so against the wars. A colleague once told me, this is her tweeting again. A colleague once told me that he resented the fact that his tax dollars paid for legal representation for the poor. I immediately imagined what it would be like if, once more, only the wealthy could afford lawyers. Innocent poor would go to jail in large numbers. If that was happening today, what would we do? What would we do if that was happening today? She's right. So lower income families and communities would be ripped apart, plunging them into poverty. You can't support a family from jail. The poor communities would get poorer. Children would grow up troubled without adequate education.
Do you know what the funniest thing about this is?
What?
She's a lawyer.
Yeah.
So if she's saying that if she didn't, she would not help these poor people out.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
She should, yeah, this could, and all those kids, it's a shame because all these kids, if I guess the poor communities would get poor, children would grow up troubled without an adequate education, which everyone is getting today. So we wouldn't want to see that.
Wow.
Oh man, it would get easier to prey on the uneducated. Libertarians, like other Trump supporters, view the American government as illegitimate. That's why they love it when Trump attacks free press, dismantles regulatory agencies, attacks rule of law, and even lies and cheats.
This must have been where the Ambien kicked in.
Yeah. That's probably the best sentence.
First of all, who is preying on the uneducated today? I mean, who is...
Libertarians.
Yeah.
Military recruiter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm speechless. You want to talk about someone preying on the uneducated. How about people voluntarily signing up for whatever wars we're doing now? You're telling me that they're not uneducated?
And they promise them free education, too.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite sentence in all of this has to be libertarians, like other Trump supporters,
Yeah.
view the American government as illegitimate. So libertarians are now Trump supporters, and Trump supporters also view the U.S. government as not legitimate.
That's news to me.
Yeah, I had no idea. She's educating me.
I didn't know, like, all these Trump supporters are anarchists just like us. It's amazing. Right? We just had, like...
We won the election.
Yeah, we have a quarter of our numbers went from, like...
Nobody.
0.1% of the population at best to now, what, 20 to 30%?
Yeah, not bad.
Wow.
Pretty good.
That is.
Wow. Who's
playing 40 chess now?
So she continues. Oh, I do another thing. Like, come on. Trump lies and cheats like all the other politicians don't. The Democrats don't. Like,
right.
No, I don't think
that's one thing I love about the normies out there, whether they're Republican or Democrat or whatever. They think their side is like pure and the other side is the liars and cheaters.
Yeah.
You don't realize they're playing the same damn game. Where was I?
Didn't one of the Democratic presidents actually lie and cheat in the Oval Office?
No, I don't think so.
Didn't Bernie? Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that Hillary Clinton stole the primary from Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders was running as a Republican that year.
Oh, right.
Clinton was a Republican, right?
Yeah. Something like that.
Bill Clinton was a libertarian, so I guess
that's true.
It.
That's true. Just like George Bush. It's creative destruction. A desire to dismantle a government they believe is illegitimate is why they pretend to believe all of Trump's lies. See, and she has a link. The lies are destructive. Destroy it all. They think a libertarian utopia will rise from the ashes.
Okay, hang on. I have to say, I kind of agree with her here, right? I see where she's going with this. It's creative destruction, but I don't support Trump. I didn't do anything to get him there. I'm just kind of that guy standing in the corner, like giggling, as the whole thing burns to the ground. Of course, government's illegitimate. And if somebody's going to sit there and try to destroy it, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'll cheer it on.
But I'm not going to I'm not participating. I'm not participating, this year like I did the 4 years before and the 4 years before that.
But what I'm getting from this is we won. We're winning, guys. All these presidents, we're winning.
All those podcasts we've done where we're frustrated, we should just delete them.
Yeah, we're being bad winners. So we're winners.
So yeah, this is great. Trump is like basically the Terminator of the state, so he should be our favorite guy.
She did do us the favor of linking in this tweet a Slate article.
I noticed that.
So in case you're trying to figure out where she's coming from, just read that Slate article entitled "Why Trump Supporters Will Believe Any Lie He Tells."
And we are the Trump supporters.
Right, of course. Libertarians.
Yeah, that's what that is. That article, which I haven't read, but I'm sure it's about, Mises Institute.
Well, I mean they've got what's his name, Kavanaugh, the predator there. So obviously he's a.
I actually just saw an article that he has decided on 25 cases and 24 were with the liberals.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I read that in an article. I don't know what decisions they were. But I found that interesting because they were saying he's, I guess, trying to go overboard to say he's fair or something. I don't know. I don't understand any of that stuff.
It's like what happens with the home team bias in sports. Umpires and referees. They think it's just trying to appear to be not against the home team, that they end up actually favoring the home team.
Going over, yeah. I mean, that might be the case. I don't know if that's true. I read that on something. It was probably linked on Twitter or Facebook, and I clicked it. And I can't reference it, so.
Probably just some true lies.
Yeah. Yes.
Guys, we're getting so close, and this next one is my favorite. This is so good.
Yeah, this is a good one. So if the Libertarians manage to get rid of the New Deal, all federal agencies, and the federal income tax on the ground that they're unconstitutional, there'd be chaos. Entire industries would be thrown into bedlam. There would be widespread suffering and pain.
We would have TV shows where they send people through these deadly mazes. And that would be entertainment.
It would devolve into a Mad Max episode. You just one night.
You zoom out, and that's only happening in the Beltway, and the rest of the world's going on.
Yeah, we're right on the edge of all just killing each other. If it wasn't for FDR or
the New Deal,
I mean, without that, we would have chaos and bedlam. Yeah, it would just be insane.
Every day.
Libertarians are the reason that we can't go on these mental vacations at these businesses and just we'd have this incredible wealth that we could just go to Mars at a whim.
But they're okay with that as long as the government that taxes them and limits their individual liberty is gone. Democracy can't exist if the income inequality is too extreme. If that happens, we have oligarchy. The way to get there is destroy every government program.
Yeah, we do have oligarchy.
And yeah, I don't know. I may have read an article or two over the last couple of years about how there's a huge income gap.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I know, the New Deal still exists, or at least many parts of it.
Well, very powerful and rich people and businesses don't ever influence government, so
no, that's true.
We're good.
And democracy can't exist if income inequality is too extreme. Why would that be?
Yeah, why? I don't.
Isn't that what democracy is supposed to
protect?
Be the panacea against?
Yeah, because then you would have a few rich people and all the poor people voting.
Oh, yeah. we need more democracy now that the income gap is growing. So we need to throw more democracy at it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The minorities need to be super delegates. They need to have extra votes that count extra. That's how you fight it.
Like commando delegates?
Yeah. that might just given them that idea.
Well, here's where we can tie it all back to Russia, the libertarian utopia of Russia. Maybe that's what Libertarian Senator Rand Paul was doing in Moscow, hobnobbing with the same Russians who interfered in our election. Senator McCain even accused Senator Paul of working for Putin, and she has some links to back up those points.
Is that what got McCain killed?
Maybe.
Did Rand Paul put out a hit on him for exposing his Russia connection?
Could have been. I don't know. I don't know what Rand Paul was doing in Moscow. I don't really care all that much about Rand Paul, to be honest with you.
Yeah, filibustering. That's what he does everywhere.
He's good at it. He's very good at it.
Lawnmowers, because he was filibustering and while mowing the lawn.
She calls him a libertarian, but he's not a libertarian. It's disingenuous.
I mean, would Rand Paul even say he's a libertarian?
Take offense.
I'm pretty sure
she called him to his face.
I'm pretty sure he's been pressed on it in an interview, and he said no.
Yeah.
Or he danced around it. I mean, he's a Republican. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Russian state TV declared Paul a Russian loyalist because he voted against sanctions and supported Trump's performance at Helsinki. Putin destroys, so the libertarians will stand by and watch. People need to stop thinking of all Trump supporters as uneducated and gullible.
Okay. So,
I guess that's one spin on it.
I guess unless you're in favor of all sanctions against other nations, you're not a good statist and you're a libertarian.
Yeah, the level of discourse is so someone proposes a policy, right? And I'm against the policy, and then it's just an instant name calling.
Yeah,
it's so childish.
Right. And what are sanctions? Like, you're against sanctions, so what are they? You're not allowing people to trade? I mean, if you're the one who is against pain, how are you helping Russian people by not trading with them? We could go to the famous Madeleine Albright quote on 60 Minutes back in the 90s when, was it Diane Sawyer interviewing her, said something like, it has been said that 500,000 Iraqi children have died because of the sanctions. And she said it was worth it. But the point is, so it's okay to do sanctions on countries?
This is like saying if you don't support bombing Iran, you're a terrorist.
Right.
And that's where we're at right now, really. I mean, they just declared the Iranian Guard
a terrorist organization. I saw that.
So now if you're against bombing Iran, you're a terrorist loyalist.
Yeah, and now Iran is a safe haven for terrorism.
It's the number one exporter of terrorists in the world. Did you know? According to Israel.
It reminds me of the scene in The Departed when they're like standing outside the mob headquarters, and one of the guys is like, "You're a cop." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Anybody who doesn't acknowledge us or look at us or answer us, they're a cop. They must be a cop." So you ready to burn down Stalingrad. You're a what? I don't know what the Russian word is for cop. What do they call them? They probably have a cool name too.
Poliski.
Poliski.
No, I
they have a cool Euro siren.
That sounds right. I'm gonna go with it.
And like, I think I don't remember Trump's help. I remember it, but I don't remember what was going on. But didn't he say he was going to try to work with the Russians or something? Isn't that preferable than war?
Yes,
it was a pretty benign comment, and it was turned into overthrowing NATO to join forces with Russia or something.
Yeah. So here's a good one too. Many libertarians are wealthy, powerful, and highly educated and good with propaganda. Put another way, libertarians are the pseudo part of pseudo populism. Fortunately, libertarians are a minority. They know if enough people vote, they're doomed.
This is where I have bad news for you, Terry. Because we have Bitcoin. And hold on to your butt, because it's destroying everything that you love way more than any libertarian propagandizing that can be done.
He thinks libertarians are wealthy and powerful now. Just wait.
Yeah. But that's so. That is a funny thing. Why do libertarians get that? I guess reputation that they're wealthy and powerful. Is it the Koch brothers?
Yeah, that's a new one, because I thought they were all neckbeards in their parents' basement.
Right.
All incels, right? Like, essentially, before that was coined, that was a libertarian, was basically a worthless loser, I thought.
And I'm sure she talks about cronyism. I don't know, but I imagine she would, and doesn't like crony capitalism. I guess she would say that's libertarian. Yeah.
Well, I did look at Peter Thiel's Wikipedia. He is worth $2.5 billion, apparently. So that's her one example of a libertarian here. Other than David Boaz, which I'm sure is also very wealthy.
Yeah, there are wealthy libertarians, but
like she generalizes as it to say that that's like a thing, that we're all libertarians are just wealthy, powerful propagandists.
And he wasn't like polluting waterways and setting forest fires. Like the co-creator of PayPal, right? Like something everyone uses and loves.
Yeah.
I think that he didn't even using left terminology like run sweatshops or steal it off the backs of workers and laborers. Like it's literally like an algorithm basically that people love and use and help stimulate commerce all around the globe.
And now she's against minorities.
Oh boy.
This may be why Thiel bemoans women and minorities voting. And then she has a link. If we get organized and stay focused, we can vote them. We can outvote them. But don't expect libertarians to care about Trump's lying and destructive law breaking. Your outrage probably just amuses them. I don't think she has to worry about me outvoting her.
Once again, she's correct. The outrage does amuse me.
Yeah, it does.
She might be missing the reason why Teal isn't a big fan of women, right? She's just going to dance around that one? Not a fan of the ladies.
So
I'm not wrong. He's famously gay, right?
Is he? I don't know.
Isn't that was part of like that whole giant defamation suit?
Oh, you might be right about that, actually.
Could be.
Yeah, that's what happened with the Gawker thing, right? Because Gawker outed him. Yeah.
Are you looking it up? Is that
Yeah.
So
Okay.
She's saying that this is why Thiel bemoans women, but he's actually gay, famously gay.
Yeah.
So here's another thing. She keeps talking about this voting thing. What do you think she would do when she confronts a lot of libertarians and says well, we're just going to outvote you, and they just go, yeah, we don't vote. We think it's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just picture the Windows logout music playing, just a blank look on her face, do.
Yeah, it's a cold reality when this straw boogeyman you've created isn't even engaged in the game or fight that you think you're playing.
That's exactly why I am adamant about not voting, because it doesn't do anything positive, but it does disempower people like this.
Yeah, it would have fed her narrative if you were out there just flaunting your wealth and voting against gays and blacks.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, because at the end, we mentioned it in the beginning, but in the end, she says, I'm talking about this because it's important to know your enemy and everything. And it's it's really obvious. She does not know anything about libertarianism. So, I understand it is very valuable to know your enemy and to know how they think and what their goals and plans are, so you can fight. But man, it's she's swinging wildly, and it's we're not even in the same boxing ring.
It's not even close.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. This whole thing was pretty absurd.
Which makes me feel great.
So we are winning.
She does say, I have to highlight this, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what she's saying, but so she went out and gave that summary, which is actually what you read at the beginning. And one of them she said was, my main accusation that libertarian ideals and democracy are incompatible was generally met with this response. Democracy means that 51% forces its will on 49%, so democracy is a bad idea, end quote. Well, you see, the reason we have rule of law is to constrain the majority and protect minority populations. John Adams recognized the danger of a tyranny of the majority. So you're protecting the majority by letting the majority rule? I'm confused.
Yeah.
What are you saying? You understand that 51% is the majority, right? And they're the winners. So how are you fighting the majority?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know. Her math is a little fuzzy, I think. But
I think she sees the majority as the moral majority, which may actually be the minority in some cases. So there's this kind of larger societal great that I think she's that needs to be imposed and protected, no matter what the vote count, essentially. Kind of like an unwritten rules type thing.
I think that she also missed the point that, you understand how the 49%, if they disagree with you, you're still imposing your will on them. So that's force. I think that just kind of went right over her head.
Yeah,
clearly.
Well, it's more important to be more morally correct than factual. It's the
Yeah. Well, some of the responses to this too are funny. I'm just like looking at random ones. Someone writes they like the social contract theory, just not when it helps their neighbors.
Right.
Someone else replied that they thanking her, saying that they didn't know much about libertarianism until now. You know, there's some really strange responses.
So you're equating liberty with fascism?
Right.
Yeah, there's these are good. I'll probably lay in bed all night just going through all these tweets.
Just read through
Probably
them.
thousands of them. I don't even know.
Libertarians are poodles for the far right and always have been.
Is this
Here's
a decent
one.
ratio? For 50,000 followers, should you be getting around 200 or 300 likes per post?
Here's a good one. Teal is a real C word.
That's it. Libertarianism is a grand scheme for cave dwellers and uninhabited large land areas, none of which we are or have. Only isolated people can practice it because it doesn't require engagement with others. Yeah. We never talk about voluntary interactions.
Yeah, I never leave the house, and
Right.
I forage my food out of the backyard.
Yeah, division of labor is not something libertarians talk about.
Right. Oh my god. Oh well.
Yeah, so that's that.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. We did.
Yeah,
I honestly
the
didn't
whole
think we were
thing.
gonna do it, but we did.
Neither did I. We raced it through a little bit. We could probably do full episodes on a lot of the points, but I thought it was pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah. Hey, Rollo, you got a free market story?
Jared kind of told one earlier.
I was going to say, since we have these guys on, which I think is a pretty cool free market story, is Beer Advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put you guys on the spot, but I'm sure you've seen it.
Oh, I thought the government did that for us.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, it's pretty what's the word? I mean, it's kind of like a Yelp type deal, right? Anyone can post their reviews of beer. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, you got kind of a wisdom of the crowds approach. So it's, what was Netflix and Rotten Tomatoes have had those issues with, like, oh, people are bombing this big Marvel movie and they're making the reviews bad. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if that ever happening on Beer Advocate where someone just tanked a popular beer unless it was bad, right?
Right.
It tastes bad.
Mm-hmm.
If it's found in someone's garage after several years, it is not going to get good reviews.
Well,
Yeah. I love the idea of crowdsourcing, crowdsourcing a review or crowdsourcing quality control. Really, is what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful tool within the marketplace, and even some place like any online marketplace, if they have a really good rating system and you can trust it, that's great for the consumer and it's great for the seller. It forces them to produce a good product and treat their consumers well. You
get a double feedback loop, right? So the good's getting rewarded and the bad's getting trashed. Because you have to trust it. And then what happens with some of these other industries we just mentioned is they didn't trust their own algorithm. They decided to take away reviews in the case of Netflix or who knows what monkey Rotten Tomatoes did. They pushed to where a certain time had to elapse before you could review or something like that.
I didn't really follow that drama, but I don't know what they did. I know they still give you the critics review and the audience review.
I think they made it to where the audience couldn't review till the release date.
Oh, that's
people were
right.
Reviewing before, but thousands of screeners get sent out. Like that's not a crazy thing. Or you could see a trailer that's so bad you want to review the whole movie. They put the whole movie in some of these trailers. I actually have to avoid trailers of a movie I know I want to see. I don't want too much given away.
And there's no such thing as bootlegs either.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's no such thing as like bootleg advanced beers, as far as I know. If you're taking the time to review a beer, I'm betting you probably tasted it. There's not going to be any widespread fraud there.
Well, I mean, no, there is some fraud. Like Yingling calls itself a beer.
We should try and see who can make the best troll review of Yingling and post it on
Just post it on the Friends Against Government like iTunes page or something.
Whoops, I pasted this in the wrong place.
Challenge accepted.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you? Talk about your podcast a little bit.
Sure. We are at peacefultreason.com. That's where we basically just post our podcast content, and our show notes are right there at peacefultreason.com. We're pretty active on Twitter at Peaceful Treason. You can find us there, and both of us tweet back and forth on that all the time. And that's pretty much it. We used to have, we've got a Discord. People can look us up if they want the Discord link. Just reach out to us. And we haven't been as active there lately, but that I think that may pick up in the future. And then those are the primary places where we're active online. So
yeah, just search it. Take a guess maybe on your social media of choice and see if it comes up.
Yeah,
if you Google search Peaceful Treason, that's us. No one else has ever used that phrase before.
We'll link to all that stuff on the show notes page, mcflugel.com/139. And I do want to say that you guys, in a podcast episode, I guess a couple months ago, you had the funniest moment I've ever heard in the podcast.
I know where you're going with this.
Actually, I think I do too, yeah.
I was dying laughing. It's when Jared was throwing up on air. When you announced it in the beginning of the episode, it's like, and they even have, one of us vomits on air. I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be, but I can't wait for it. And every couple, I was waiting for it, on pins and needles the whole time. And it was so amazing because you eventually just get to the point where you're like, all right, it's coming. I got to go. And you can hear it in the background. And Will, you just keep going. Like there's, just keep talking whenever you're talking about. And then you hear gas, Jared, you come up gasping for air and commenting oh, really? That's what was in that article.
That's one of our most downloaded. I'm embarrassed to say, but it was good. It was good radio. What can I say?
It was amazing.
I paused the podcast a couple of times. And I was like, we got to take a break because I got to go puke, man. And I just couldn't do it. It was meant to be while the recording was going on, and it was. So I left it in.
Try not to have any edits. So don't cut where you don't need to. Leave those gems hidden.
Oh yeah.
It was a hard lesson learned. I have not vomited since then. I every year that goes by, I get a little bit more responsible with my alcohol consumption.
Well, but here comes Childerberg.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's good. Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be.
Bring your milk thistle.
It's going to be off the hook. So I think we've been recording for almost an hour and a half. So we'll.
Good deal.
Yeah, you guys can hang on for a few seconds, for a little bit. Just as long as you want.
We didn't take much of your time tonight.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having us.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yes. This was awesome.
Finally get it done.
Yeah, and we should make sure to do it again very soon.
Oh, we will.
That is, if we can find someone else saying dumb stuff about libertarianism. I'm not sure we'll ever have this opportunity again.
It's hard to find.
All right, so let's close this out. Again, mcflugel.com/139. Make sure to check out Peaceful Treason podcast. Follow them on Twitter. Also, listen to their podcast. It is one that I listen to whenever an episode drops. And thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Peace.